Good morning, esteemed guests and participants. Our Honorable Vice Chairman of SRSB, CA Dr. Anuj Goyal ji, and participants from around the globe. I am CA Shweta Goyal, the Secretary of Sustainability Reporting Standards Board, would like to welcome you to our webinar of today, Navigating the Green Economy, Insights from 2023 and 24 Economic Survey of Business for Businesses, organized by SRSB. As we transition into an era where sustainability and economic growth go hand in hand, it is imperative for businesses to understand the evolving landscape and seize opportunities within the green economy. Today, we will delve into key insights from the recent economic surveys, exploring how businesses can thrive while contributing to a more sustainable future. We would like to welcome CA Pushti Sahani ji from Ghaziabad branch of ICI to introduce our Vice Chairman Sir CA Dr. Anuj Goyal ji. Welcome, ma'am. Would you take over from there, please?
Yes, definitely. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Uh, a very warm welcome to all of you. I would like to introduce CA Dr. Anuj Goyal, sir, the very dynamic chartered accountant who's always been present for such events, who's always been promoting the well-being and the professional ethics of chartered accountancy. He has always been seen in such events, and he's always been seen in promoting such events. Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to invite you, and we will get the webinar started. Over to ma'am.
We would like to introduce our CA, Dr. Anuj Goyal ji. I'll just give a brief introduction about him. He's a Central Council member of ICI, Vice Chairman of the Sustainability Reporting Standards Board. He chairs the Ethical Standard Board, the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee, and the Publication and the CDS Directorate. With over 30 years of experience, including 17 years in the Central Council, he has made significant contributions to the profession. He is a renowned speaker, visiting faculty, and editor of various professional publications. We welcome you, sir, and would like you to invite you to address the participants. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sweta Goyal ji, and his entire team. We are, of course, having Mr. Goyal and other chartered accountants present in the entire team of the SRSB. We are having CAS Badrinayan ji, Pushti Sahani ji, and CA Amit Agrawal ji, and all other respective delegates from each and every part of the world. I will like to talk to you later on because we are very eager to hear our honorable resource persons, CAS Badrinayan ji, on navigating the green economy, insights from the 23-24 economic survey for businesses. And I'm quite confident that all of us will be benefited by the delegation of our honorable guest speaker. And we are very well aware that as far as sustainability is concerned, it is the need of our to see that how we can have a more sustainable future. And our committee is really putting its best to see that how we can really do something very concrete in this direction. So I once again welcome all the delegates from each and every part of the world. And as Vice Chairman of the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board, I welcome our honorable guest speaker, Badrinayan ji, Pushti Sahani ji, CA Amit Agrawal ji. And I have to join some other program. I will be joining in between. And then I will be talking to you in more detail. So thank you very much. Over to Sweta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for an enlightening address. We are, privileged to have you as in vice chairman and work under your leadership. Thank you, sir. Now we will be now moving to our technical section of today, which promises to be equally enriching and focusing on providing the valuable insights into the opportunities and challenges of the greener economy and explore strategies to navigate with the evolving landscape. Now we would like to welcome CA Amit Agrawal ji. He is a distinguished CA and advisor with extensive expertise in corporate insolvency, ESG and sustainability reporting, audits and restructuring. Welcome you, sir. We would now over to you to welcome our technical speaker for today, CA Badrinayan.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good morning for the CA Badrinayan ji He is a distinguished chartered accountant and advisor with the extensive expertise in corporate insolvency, ESG, and sustainability reporting, audits, and restructuring. With a robust background in academic and corporate consultancy, he has successfully resolved high debt exposure cases and contributed significantly to the sustainability reporting standards. As an active participant in the various professional bodies, including ICI, he combines practical insight with the commitment to making a positive impact through knowledge, discrimination, and value additions. Thank you, sir. And now over to the CAS Badrina ING to start the webinar.
Thank you so much, Amitji, for the introduction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
First, I'll thank SRSB, the Vice Chairman Anuj Goyalji, and the entire staff who's coordinating, and relentlessly putting so much effort to bringing all these useful webinars. Thank you to Pushti also. So, without wasting much time, I'll just start with my slides. So the slides would be visual. So today's session is basically on the 23-24 economic survey. And we are just trying to evaluate and appreciate if there are any pointers from the survey which touches upon sustainability and how those pointers resulting in policy framework and regulatory directions from the government. What are the sector specific opportunities and challenges which are there because of these guidelines or these directions, and some investment opportunities and innovations which we can see going forward in the green economy. So before we touch on the economic survey document, it's necessary that we understand a bit about what an economic survey is. So it is an annual document presented by the government ahead of the union budget. Now these days, budget sessions have become like IPL sessions. There are a lot of fan following. I mean, we could not imagine 10 years back that so much public interest would be there in seeing budget sessions, but the viewership has increased so much, which is good that citizens are more involved. They are more interested in knowing what's happening. And, there are a lot of debates, discussions, interactions happening, a lot of conferences, a lot of brainstorming, which shows that we as citizens are indulging and, we are also part of the decision-making process. So economic survey as a document is presented before the budget is presented. It is prepared by Economic Division of Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, under supervision of Chief Economic Advisor, who is currently Mr. V. Anantha Nageswaran sir. Now, this economic survey is then tabled before both houses of the Parliament by Honorable Union Finance Minister. Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman did that this time. And historically, if you see, this was first presented in 1950-51. And initially, it was part of the budget document. Later on, it became a separate volume from 1964. Now, what is the purpose of economic survey? Probably you can call it like a evaluation scorecard. We see what and how we have done in the last 12 months on our targets. So it is basically to review the developments in Indian economy over the previous 12 months. To summarize the performance on major development programs. I request others to keep on mute, please. To summarize the performance on major development programs. So in budget every year, like government will come up with schemes, right, on various different segments of the society and on the economic part. So economic survey also does evaluation of how far we have reached on those targets, on those schemes, to highlight the policy initiatives of the government. So a lot of new policies are suggested, proposed, and a lot of new directions are laid down for the economy and the environment. So this also serves as a policy document to show a strategic direction on what way the government intends to go, and then to analyze the economic trends and provide an outlook for coming year. So very typically, if you see, it's like what we have done till now, how are we achieving our targets, what other targets we are going to put forth for the coming future, and to analyze the existing economic trends and what outlook we have for the coming year. So it's like a yearly scorecard for the government. Now we should know some technical facts, right, which are important for us before we deep dive into the session. First of all, we should understand that we are a large nation. Our population exceeds 1.4 billion, right? And now we are the most populous in the world. And this figure is going to reach up higher and higher. Now, some positives which we have been discussing is we have a young population. A young working age of our population can be a good contribution to our GDP growth. But parallelly, if you see that employment generation has been a concern. So if there is a young working age population, but no employment generation, that can definitely result in not optimizing the potential which we have. And the economic survey touches upon the concerns on employment generation. It also touches upon how more private sector involvement is required, how more investment from the private sector is required. And it does nudge on the fact that government is doing a lot of capex investment, but that private sector investment also has to be crowded from that capex investment. So the survey also touches on that. We should also understand that we are the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases, right? We are a big nation, we are a developing nation, and our ambitions are also higher, which is fair and transparent to state. So we technically, factually are the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Now this puts us as a crossroad of sustainability and development. Now, developed nations would have utilized fossil fuels, utilized resources of the Mother Earth all these years and developed themselves. Now, suddenly, this climate change or climate issue is not something which has come up overnight, right? It has come up over a lot of years. And in those lot of years, a lot of developed nations have utilized the resources much more. So we have the situation. Now we can't expect only the developing nations to contribute to climate change or change their way of life or manufacturing to tackle the climate change. The responsibility is equally on all. In fact, it's more on the developed nations. So as a third largest emitter, we are expected to take more actions, right? We are expected to put in more mitigation strategies. So the economic survey talks a lot about the westernized concept of thinking, how it's impacting maybe the Indian scenario, and what should be there to tackle this at the root cause, not to just solve a problem, but to solve the very issue from which the problems are arising. Third fact is our per capita emission is around 2.8 tons. So we say we are the third largest GHG emitter. But if you see per capita emission, it's 2.8 tons compared to 8 tons in European Union and 16 tons in the United States. So if you speak even on facts, per capita emission of us is lower than the developed nations. So it's unfair to put all the blame and all the responsibility on developing nations. Then we can also see that high income nations are responsible for the majority of global emissions. And this is also a fact that top 10% of emitters averaging 22 tons of CO2 per year, it's like over 200 times the emissions of the bottom 10%. So you can see the magnitude and the difference between the top developing nations emissions vis-a-vis the bottom 10% emitters. The average American consumes 12,700 kilowatt hours of electricity annually. Compare it with just 185 kilowatt of hours in Africa. So there is a disparity, right? The developed nations is actually consuming more, and the developing nations are not consuming that much. In fact, they don't have that much, and they are fighting with a lot of scarcities in terms of food, nutrition, infrastructure. But still, the blame comes on the developing nations. So the economic survey touches a lot on this thought process to really put into perspective from the Indian side, from a developing nation side, and also touches upon our values and cultural system, which has an inbuilt sustainability parameter, which we have been following since centuries. But somewhere the thought process of westernization has influenced here also, and a lot of things like very simple things like nuclear family, right? People have started moving out and living separately, and vis-a-vis when you compare it to a multi-generational family where a lot of cousins and a lot of other members of the family also live with you, right? A joint family concept helped more in sustainability, helped more from the sense of affordable housing on the constraints of resources. So that was more viable. Now when you have nuclear families, every different family subset is going to strain the resources much more independently, distinctly, rather than what would have happened if everybody stayed together like the Indian concept was there. So like these small things the economic survey has pointed out, and saying that we should perhaps focus on our own tradition, on our own way of living, and not be influenced by the westernized thought process, because there are glaring deficiencies in them. Now, the key notes on which we can say the survey and the policy direction depends, right? So we have a strategy, and which is, and all the actions, all the policy actions, everything is moving towards that strategic direction. So the major key strategies which we can say is, one is the Viksit Bharat by 2047. All the policy actions, all the directions are towards achieving this objective of Viksit Bharat by 2047. That's 100 years from independence, and we want to basically achieve a transformed nation which is self-reliant. Now, the journey from 2022. So Viksit Bharat term was coined somewhere in 2022. The journey from 2022 till 2047 is being referred to as Amrit Kal. And this Amrit Kal, and this has gotten a lot of trend, and it has got a lot of popularity also because of the efforts being put in that. And this Amrit Kal has been anchored on three parameters: reform, perform, and transform. So that's the policy direction. The government is intending to reform a lot of measures, bring in a lot of measures, then perform on those, and then based on that performance, create a transformation in the Indian economy towards a sustainable green economy. The third keynote which I may submit is net zero by 2070. So this is something India agreed, declared in the COP26, and that we will become net zero by 2070. And probably this is one of the largest infra and employment generation sources which is going to be there. Because to become net zero, you have to do a lot of things. You have to move to a low carbon emission technology, low carbon emission production processes. You have to create sustainable housing. So a lot of things are required to become net zero by 2070. And these lot of things will definitely push your infrastructure needs, and your employment generation also will go up because of that. Some estimates say that solar and wind installations will need to grow 70 times from current size to reach 7,700 gigawatts to achieve net zero by 2070. So that's the level of infra push which will be required to achieve this global declaration which we have made. So I always personally feel that governments may keep on changing, but the policy direction does not change substantially. If you have made some declaration at the global stage, and when everybody is aware of the climate change and the issues because of that, like the IPCC report, which said that, if we continue, the sixth IPCC report basically said, if we continue on the path we are doing and the way we are harming the environment, then things are going to get very, very severe. In fact, they said that what harm has been done is now irreversible for millennia to come. So the damage has been done. You can't even reverse it. But by opting for a sustained way of life, a sustained way of manufacturing, by looking at some at least intricacies and addressing those issues, reducing emissions, we can at least subdue or sustain the damage at this current level and not further worsen it. So all these issues are eminent across the world. Everybody is affected by this. It's not like climate change will affect only India and not any other nation. Everybody is affected by this. So all the nations have made some declaration under COP26. And to achieve that declaration, that policy direction will continue. So the emissions reduction technologies or emission reduction measures will keep on continuing. The push on renewable source of energy will keep on continuing, right? So like we know that for solar and wind installation, we have to reach 7,700 gigawatts by 2070. Right now, our target is 500 gigawatts, which we have to reach by 2030, which very quite evidently we are going to reach. But the push will be there on renewable sources. The push will be there to reduce carbon emissions. So this has to be looked at as an opportunity. And whatever happens, this policy direction will keep on continuing. Now, the economic survey 23-24, it opens with a Vedic shloka, which says, Mata Bhumi Putra Aham Prithivya, which basically says, Earth is my mother, and we are all sons of Earth, we are all sons and daughters of Earth. So this, in fact, if you keep seeing from Mr. K.V. Subramaniam was Chief Economic Advisor, he came up with the concept of Thali economics also. And you can see that entire bunch of economic surveys will be focused on philosophies from our Vedas and Shastras, right? That shows that we have inbuilt sustainability parameters. We have a cultural value system. We don't have to be influenced by the West. We have adequate practices which are being followed for centuries, and we are unnecessarily getting influenced and we are unnecessarily straying away from the right path. Now, this sloka and also the G20, we had the world presidency last year. It was on Vasudeva Kutumbakam concept that Earth is one, all are one family, right? And this, that we are all children of Mother Earth. This basically shows our philosophy on sustainability. It shows our cultural systems alignment with the sustainability practices. It also highlights our resilience in the face of global adversities and how our country can, on its own spiritual and cultural background, build upon its own traditional practices to address the climate change and other revolving issues. Now, some key takeaways from economic survey. So before going on to the sustainability part of the economic survey, maybe some facts and figures to give a background context or where we stand as a nation. So the survey says that our economy is on a strong wicket and a stable footing. So we'll just look at some figures and some evaluation which has come out as part of the survey. I'll just project my screen again. All these are picked up from the economic survey only. So I'm just going to give some brief highlights on the figures. India's real GDP grew by 8.2% in financial year 23-24 and exceeded the 8% mark in 3 out of 4 quarters of financial year 23-24. For 24-25, the GDP growth is seen at 6.5% to 7%, with the risk evenly balanced. In fact, if you look at IMF and World Bank estimates, it is more optimistic than our own economic survey. IMF said we will grow at 8%, right? And our survey says maybe 6.5 to 7%. So we have given a conservative approach. Gross fixed capital formation increased by 9% in real terms in 23-24 because of the capex outlay by the government. Retail inflation declined to 5.4% in financial year 23-24 because of inflationary pressures by global issues, supply chain disruption. We have read about the Panama Canal led logistic disruption, which increased the cost of shipping. And the monsoons also have resulted in an impact. So inflation is still a concern, but the government is putting its effort to rein it under. India is resilient amid geopolitical challenges, with economy having a stable footing. So there are a lot of issues happening across the world. War in Ukraine, between Israel, Palestine, a lot of issues are happening, but India has been, the stock market, you can see that's one sense of the economic barometer. India has been performing well. The economy has been pretty much stable. There are some concerns, but those concerns are being addressed. Subdued global demand for goods has pressured external balance, but strong services exports largely counterbalance this. So our service sector has been performing good. Current account deficit stood at 0.7% of GDP, an improvement from the deficit of 2% in 22-23. India's economy has recovered and expanded in a controlled manner since pandemic. So COVID caused a lot of economic disruption. In fact, at that point in time, a report came that whatever good work was done on bringing down poverty level across the globe has been reversed because of the pandemic. And because the pandemic set in, it had such a devastating impact. All those good progress was lost. But after the pandemic, a lot of economic measures during and after the pandemic was brought in India also. And Indian economy has recovered and expanded in a controlled manner since the pandemic. Real GDP in 2024 was 20% higher than 2020 level, achieved by only few major economies. The outlook for continued growth looks good amid geopolitical, financial market, and climate risk. Other indicators tracking performance of the economy also point towards growth resilience. If you look at the employment landscape, the survey says that 51.25% of the youth is deemed not eligible for employment. In other words, one of the two graduates do not possess the skills to be employed. So skill upgradation is one key area which you have to focus on. India's per capita income has grown more than 7 times since 1990. Economic survey has projected per capita to reach 14.9 lakh by 2047. To accommodate the rising workforce, Indian economy needs to generate an average of nearly 78.5 lakh jobs annually in non-farm sector until 2030. So in non-agricultural sector, we have to generate 78 lakh jobs annually. In terms of employment status, 57.3% of the total workforce is self-employed, 18.3% as unpaid workers in household enterprises. State-wise, the top 6 states in terms of number of factories were also greatest creators of factory employment. More than 40% of factory employment was in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. In 21-22, factories employing less than 100 people constituted 79.2% of all factories, while contributing only 22.1% of total persons employed and 20.9% of workers. This has been improving as per the survey. The yearly net payroll addition to EPFO has doubled from financial 19 to financial 23. The chief economic advisor also said that PLI schemes, the production linked incentive schemes, have gained momentum in the past years and have garnered an investment of 1.28 crores. As a result, 8.5 lakh employment opportunities are generated. So a lot of sectors have been receiving production linked incentive schemes, including the semiconductor recently. Then the 10 most populous states collectively imposed 139 prohibitions on women from participating in factory processes like electroplastic, etc., etc. In 23-24, rural wages rose above 5% every month. Nominal wage rates in agriculture grew by 7.4% for men and 7.7% for women from agricultural growth. On monetary management, the survey says the bank credit growth has sustained momentum with broad-based growth sector across the sectors. Credit disbursals stood at 164.3 lakh crores, growing by 20% at end of March 24 compared to 15% at end of March 23. During the current tightening cycle, from May 22 to May 24, external benchmark base lending and 1-year median marginal cost of base lending rate increased by 2.5% and 1.75% respectively. The gross net performing asset continued the downward trend, reaching 12-year low of 2.8%, which is good. The bank's balance sheet are getting cleaned up. The GNPA ratio of agriculture sector remains high at 6.5%, but it has recorded persistent improvement during half 2 of 23-24. So basically, the NPA relating to agriculture sector still remains a concern. Lending by NBFC accelerated, led by personal loans and loans to industry. Now, we see a lot of news on the deposit ratio being a concern, that banks are not having sufficient deposits, and that also has to be addressed. Price and inflation, India successfully managed to keep retail inflation at 5.4%, lowest since COVID-19 pandemic. In 22-23, agriculture sector was affected by extreme weather events, low reservoir levels, and damaged crops that adversely affected farm output and food prices. So food prices, the food inflation increase was based on these factors. RBI has increased the repo rate gradually by 2.5% since May 2022. If you see on the external sector, only the important ones probably. The global goods export was 1.8% in 23-24 against 1.7% in 2016-20. Similarly, share in global services export rose to 4% from average of 3.3% during 16-20. Share of India's service export in world services has risen remarkably from 0.5% in 1993 to 4.3% in 2022. India is now the 7th largest service exporting country globally, with a phenomenal rise from 24th position. India ranks 2nd in world in telecommunication, computer and information services export, 6th in personal, cultural and recreational service export, 8th in other business. Our current account deficit has narrowed down to $23.2 from $67 billion during previous year. Then coming on to climate change and energy transition, India has made significant progress on climate action. The installed solar power capacity increased from 15.3 gigawatts, reaching a cumulative total of 82.64 gigawatts in 24. So we have done a lot on our climate action goals. The Ministry of Power notified regulation on carbon credit trading scheme, also known as Indian carbon market. So the regulations have come up, but a lot of work is yet to be done on this carbon credit scheme. India has achieved target of 40% of installed energy generation through non-fossil fuels 9 years ahead of its target for 2030. So our target for 2030 is 500 gigawatts or 50% of our cumulative electricity from non-fossil fuel sources. We have already attained 40% right now in advance. In social sector, CSR compliance have been seen to be growing. CSR spending has been more than 25,000 crores. National health accounts show rising public health care. Enrollment in educational high care has increased. Female enrollment in higher education has increased. Growing equity in higher education implies better employment. India is making rapid progress in R&D. So we have 1 lakh patents granted in 2024 compared to 25,000 in 1920. Coming on to agriculture. So if this economic survey talks a lot on agriculture, in fact, the budget has given a lot of money on agriculture, somewhere around 1.52 lakh crores, and a lot of discussion on agri-tech, natural farming, bio farming. So a lot of such aspects are also covered. The performance of agriculture remains critical for economy's growth, which has been at an average of 4.18%. Indian agriculture sector provides livelihood support to about 42.3% of population and has a 18.2% in current country's GDP at current prices. As on January 24, the total credit disbursed to agriculture amounted to 22.84 lakh crores, with 13.67 allocated to crop loans. Kisan Credit Card Scheme has streamlined agricultural credit accessibility. Banks have issued 7.5 crores KCC with a limit of 9.4 lakh crores. Then coming on to SMEs, SMEs constitute the backbone of Indian economy. There are around 6.3 crores SMEs in India as per survey, NSSO survey. The survey also predates like 5 years back, and the numbers would be substantially higher now. But those 6.3 crores SMEs have at least 12 crores people employed under them. The target for MSME minister was to get 50% GDP growth from SME industry. That's the criticality of SMEs and MSMEs in India. But after COVID, a lot of financial effects were there on the companies. Now have been recouping and reviving. So as per latest report, share of MSMEs, all India manufacturing. I'll request Ms. Kushri to mute her mic, please. As per the latest report, the share of MSME in all India manufacturing output was 35.4%. Udyam registration portal, which registers MSMEs, has been instrumental in formalizing MSMEs. We also now have a social stock exchange that again is creating transparency and organizing NGOs fundraising. Then coming on to service sector, post-pandemic, service exports have maintained a steady momentum, accounted to for 44% of India's total exports. So software companies are doing wonderful in bringing forex to our country. 23-24 witnessed a decline in FDI equity inflows to the service sector. So FDI inflow has been flagged off as a concern that FDI has been the lowest in many years in India. Number of technology startups rose remarkably from 2,000 in 2014 to 31,000 in 2023. That means startups are getting pushed. In fact, in the budget also, angel tax has been removed, thereby encouraging startups and research and development. Infrastructure sector, consistent focus on road, rail, air connectivity. And between 2019 and 2023, central and state government contributed 49% and 29% of total investment, while private sector contributed 22%. So this shows that government is doing its capex, and it's waiting for the private investment also to come and play in the game. So that is the statistics on facts and figures, on the economic survey. I'll just project the slides again. Now, when we come to what the survey talks about, sustainability. So before probably showing the bare text of the survey, some key aspects which cover sustainability in the survey, I'll just take the audience to them, and probably if time permits, we can also deep dive into the economic survey bare text itself. According to the survey, India's relationship with nature reflects a fundamental understanding of its inherent power and temperament. So nature has its own laws, it operates under its own laws. We should not impose our way of working or living on the nature. We have to be subsumed under the nature's laws. We have to align ourselves with the nature's laws, not the other way around, right? It said that nature operates under its own laws, unaffected by human activities. Thus, the global environmental and sustainability strategies should align with the cyclic nature of the environment rather than relying on the beliefs that industrial actions can significantly alter it. So we can't alter it with our industrialism. We have to act as per the nature's laws. The survey argued that while traditional scientific approaches to climate change are valuable, India should leverage its own wisdom and practices for sustainable living. Again and again in the survey, it has been touched upon that why should we be influenced by Western culture or Western values, and we are forgetting that our own value system has suggestions, traditions to follow to opt for a sustainable living. It suggested that adopting and promoting an Indian way of life, one that embraces both collective and individual actions towards sustainability, could offer a valuable alternative to current top-down policy approaches. So basically, more effort has been here in this survey that we should focus on our own individual actions rather than taking a top-down policy approaches. A lot of things are happening or should happen at individual level. We should in our own families, which create an awareness on sustainability, which are reducing the impact on the environment. So there is a scheme called LIFE scheme also, which again focuses more on individual's role in the entire country's sustainability. So the report asserted that every individual plays a role in both generating and reducing emissions. Therefore, policies, awareness programs, environmental statistics should consider the impact of individual actions alongside broader policy measures. So it's very important that all these frameworks, directions, everything should first consider the individual's role. The survey also referenced a verse from Shukla Yajurveda, which calls for peace and balance in the natural world, further supporting the idea of integrating traditional wisdom into modern environmental strategies. So the survey doesn't say that the new modern methods suggested are bad. It's simply saying that, rather than just dealing with the problem, deal with the issue. And for dealing with the issue, you have traditional practices also, traditional methods also. You don't have to necessarily take a top-down approach and, which may or may not work as well. And you have to focus more on individual levels, right? The economic survey advocates for a shift from conventional climate change strategy to a model that incorporates India's traditional sustainable practices, suggesting that such an approach would offer more harmonious and effective path in addressing global environmental challenges. The economic survey added that the current global climate change strategies are flawed and not universally applicable. So straight away, we are very honestly putting our views on the Western influences, on the Western practices or the policy measures, right? The current global climate strategies are flawed and not universally applicable. Means that a straight jacket formula cannot be applied to all. You cannot say that same measures will apply to a developed nation like US and a developing nation like India or even Africa for that matter. Every nation should have its own plan to mitigate the climate risk and to mitigate and to achieve the sustainability goals or climate goals. The survey criticizes the Western approach for failing to address the root cause of the problem, overconsumption. So the survey says the root cause of the problem in sustainability is overconsumption. Instead of tackling this issue of overconsumption, the Western strategies are tending to replace one means of overconsumption with another. So you're addressing the problem, you're not addressing the very issue. For instance, the global pursuit of energy-intensive technologies like artificial intelligence and extensive mining of rare earth minerals has led to higher fossil fuel consumption, counteracting climate change mitigation goals. So, although on one place, developed nations are saying, we have to reduce carbon emission, we have to do this and that. On the other hand, they are on the highest pursuit of things like artificial intelligence, which now has it's become a fact that AI has been resulting in more emissions. Google has reported it. Microsoft has reported it. In fact, in Google, emissions have crossed more than 50% of their last reported figures just because of data centers on account of developing artificial intelligence platforms, etc. Similarly, extensive mining of rare earth minerals has again led to more use of fossil sources. You can't have a situation where you're, on one hand, you're saying we should work on emissions, on the other hand, you are taking up technologies which is increasing emissions. This approach ignores deeper human relationship with nature, materiality, and self. The report said that a one-size-fits-all approach to climate change will not work. Developing countries such as India should have the freedom to decide their own action plans. They should have the freedom to lay down their own path. And despite significant strides in climate action, India faces criticism for not aligning with Western solution, because if you don't align with them, then it seems that you're not on the right track or you're not doing enough. So India has been criticized for not aligning itself with the Western solutions. As per the report, this criticism often overlooks India's unique social and cultural context, which is already rich with sustainable development practices. We already saw that we might be world's third largest emitter, but if you see per capita emission, that is like some 2.8 tons of CO2 per year, compared with some 16 tons in Europe and 22 tons in United States. The survey then says that adopting Western practices could prove detrimental to India, where culture, economy, and societal norms are closely intertwined with the environment. The developed world's, so one more example is the world's meat production practices. It poses food security risk and threaten permanently degrade critical land, water, and natural resources. The reliance on human edible crops to feed livestock exacerbates food feed competition, meaning that whatever food humans eat, that is used to feed livestock, this exacerbates the food feed competition, with less than half of the cereals produced going toward what is produced for human consumption is going towards feeding livestock. Traditional farming practices in the developing world, such as repurposing agricultural waste as animal feed, offer a more sustainable solution by reducing financial and environmental costs. So basically saying that rather than diverting human edible cereals to feed livestock, why not practice the traditional method of repurposing agricultural waste as animal feed and using that as the livestock feed, right? So Indian solution vis-a-vis a Western solution. Similarly, the shift towards nucleated family structure, this was what I was talking about earlier. A shift towards nucleated family structures akin to the Western model places significant strain on land and resources, leading to urban sprawl and inefficient housing. Embracing multi-generational households as traditionally practiced could pave the way for more sustainable housing. So where maybe in one house you used to have three generations or three families, cousins and everybody living together. Now you have different houses for everybody. That creates a strain on the housing sector, that creates a strain on the resources, and that also has an impact on household income, how that household income is used. So a shift to nucleated family structure like West is not helping. The traditional multi-generational household structure of India may be a good alternative. Utilizing local material, labor, and designing well-ventilated spaces with natural lighting and cooling, and reducing resource and energy requirement would benefit both environment and elderly. Now, if you can YouTube videos on sustainable housing, naturally cooled houses, you will find that there are structures, there are even colleges built on this model in hot places like Rajasthan, where the colleges don't have air conditions, and it's all because of the materials used that it's still cool inside, right? If you follow Sonam Wangchuk, on whom the 3 Idiot movie was made, in Ladakh also, he says that people are using heaters so much in winter conditions that it's not optimized. So where you could have probably set it to 22 degrees, maybe people are setting it 30 degrees and it's more hot than it needs to be. Similarly, in Delhi, if you see, people are using air conditioners in a way that they set it to 16 or 17 or 18, where it can be easily 24 or 25. When you have to cool something more, as compared to the outside temperature, you're going to use more energy on it, create more emissions from it. So that has an impact on the environment. And vice versa happens in the opposite scenario also. You want to heat up your environment, your room more, then you require to consume more energy, which is not really optimized. If you can go towards sustainable housing where the materials used are such that they give a natural cooling or natural ventilation, that is preferred, is what is stated by Economic Survey. The survey advocated for India to learn from and adopt its traditional sustainable practices while integrating others only when they are environmentally and climatically appropriate. The Mission Life initiative supported by this approach emphasizes individual responsibility and promoting a range of sustainable actions. So basically, individual's role and the country's traditional sustainability practices have been focused more in the Economic Survey. Now, again, like I said, if time permits, we'll definitely go to the survey bare text and we'll read what is given in the bare text, the deep dive of that bare text. Now, coming on to some policy updates. So we'll split it into 3 parts basically. The second part we'll cover on the Economic Survey when we read it. The first part will be interim budget. So because this was an election year, we had an interim budget in February 2024. And a lot of announcements were made in that interim budget itself. And the final budget, which came now in July 2024, builds upon that interim budget. So we had kind of a blueprint in the interim budget, which was built up in the final budget. So in the interim budget, if you look at the sustainability angle or look at the green policy angle, so the first one was the announcement of bio manufacturing and bio foundry schemes. Now this scheme gives fillip to India's larger green growth mission, along with climate resilient activities for restoration and adaptation measures. This initiative go a long way in supporting net zero by 2070. Now, what is biomanufacturing? The biomanufacturing and bio foundry are part of synthetic biology, which combines engineering, biology, chemistry, and computer science. They use advanced technology to automate synthetic biology workflows, scale biological system, and develop new biological products. These products include vaccines, enzymes, and bio-based chemicals. So this policy initiative of biomanufacturing and biofoundry scheme will definitely go on to help us in a net zero transition 2070. Then promotion of solar rooftop installation. This has been doing a lot of talks. In fact, in the final budget also, the same scheme has been spoken about. Now, there was a scheme brought by the Prime Minister, and in that, yeah, they are giving 300 units of free power to 1 crore household if you get the solar panels installed on your rooftop. In fact, the installation is also subsidized. Also, then blending of compressed biogas with CNG and PNG was suggested, and there was incentives which were laid for offshore wind energy to ensure energy accessibility, affordability, and availability. Now, what is offshore wind energy? Is basically when you set up wind turbines in water bodies. So we would have seen wind turbines in some distant farms, right? But normally the wind force in water bodies might be much higher than onshore, like on the farms. So offshore is wind turbines on the water bodies like seas, etc. So there was some incentives also laid down for offshore wind energy to increase energy accessibility. There's a focus on strengthening the electric vehicle ecosystem by supporting the charger manufacturing infrastructure, increasing the number of EV buses, public transport, right? So in EV manufacturing infrastructure, you also have the charging infrastructure. So a lot of discussions are happening on how to move this charging also to renewable setup. Initiatives on empowering youth through skilling, entrepreneurship support, strengthening education infrastructure, contribute to shared vision. So this final budget also touches upon empowerment of youth through skilling, internships, etc. This blueprint was laid down in interim budget itself. Pivotal focus on infrastructure development aligns seamlessly with our vision for enhanced logistic efficiency. The government's commendable commitment to supporting EV manufacturing is a significant stride towards supporting sustainable mobility. So a lot of initiatives on EV segment. Then capacity enhancement in renewable energy was done, coal gasification was done. Continuation of emphasis on women, youth, farmers, and underprivileged. These were the 4 themes in the interim budget through skilling and welfare measures. Then significant focus on infrastructure and housing, especially PM Awas Gramin Yojana, where there is a goal of achieving 3 crore houses and planning 2 crore more in the next 5 years. Then you had announcement of INR 1 lakh crore corpus as a remarkable step to attract private investment in innovation, research, and development in clean energy sector. Empowering 11.8 crore farmers with direct financial assistance through PM Kisan, and providing crop insurance to 4 crore farmers under PM Fasal Bima Yojana. So basically, if we keep on reading about lot of crop losses due to rains or insects, pesticides, all these things keep on happening. And when there are such crop losses, it puts a hole in the pocket of the farmer who's already earning low, and that creates a lot of financial difficulties for the farmer. Then it affects the supply of that particular crop. It also then affects the prices of that crop which we then purchase. So it's a cascading effect across the ecosystem when there is such a farm crop loss. So this crop insurance tries to mitigate that loss, tries to support that farmer, tries to stabilize the insurance prices, and also tries to correct the market inconsistencies in the prices. Enhanced allocation to National Hydrogen Mission and net zero by 2070. So green hydrogen has been a big policy push, and it's going good along with the EV as well. And there is also a push on net zero by 2070. Economic survey talks a lot on how India has achieved its climate goals and how good it's doing. So when we read on the survey, we'll just maybe quickly go through some of the highlighted points there. Coming on to budget 2024, which is the final budget tabled in July 2024. Energy security, there were 9 priorities laid down in the budget, and energy security was one of the 9 priorities. Honorable Finance Minister announced a series of policies relating to green energy, new clean technology, and climate action in her budget speech. Now we are talking about budget speech and not economic survey. In the budget speech, Honorable Finance Minister said that we'll bring out a policy document on appropriate energy transition pathways that balance the imperatives of employment growth and environmental sustainability. So, a policy document on energy transition pathways that balance employment growth and environmental sustainability, because all these are required. We can't just focus on growth, or we can't just focus on sustainability. It has to be a mix and balance of both. The government will also formulate a roadmap for moving the hard to abate industries from energy efficiency target to emission target. Hard to abate industries are those which are having inherent emission concerns, like cement industries, right? Cement is like 7% of global GHG emissions from cement industry. So they are inherently having this risk of affecting environment, and it's not their fault at all, right? So the government says that we will put a roadmap that these industries which are hard to abate, we should move on from a regime where energy efficiency target is set to a regime, just one moment. Bring out a roadmap for moving from hard to abate industries from energy efficiency target to emission target. Appropriate regulation for transition of these industries from current perform, achieve, and trade, which is the PAT scheme, to Indian carbon market will be put in place. So, because it's difficult for these to abate themselves, you can't have energy efficiency targets here. So it's maybe it makes more sense to go to a carbon market mode where they can trade on carbon emissions and thereby reduce their emission level. The budget speech also said that India will develop a taxonomy for climate finance and for enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. So there were a lot of queries, concerns, clarity issues from NBFCs, banks on what climate finance is, what are the parameters. So the FM has suggested that we'll develop a taxonomy for this, and we'll make sure there is availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE, has received its highest budgetary allocation of 19,100 crore. It's almost double the allocation in 23-24, with an eye on recently announced PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. This is the rooftop solar project scheme of the government, where 300 units will be made free if you install solar panels. So the allocation to MNRE is the highest at 19,100 crores. The speech also talks about the speech also talks about the focus on empowerment through skilling, again, which has been a key concern, that employability is a concern, employment generation is a concern, private investment to generate that employment is not coming, right? So internship scheme has been proposed by the government. Many changes in the tax regime to promote greener energy has also been proposed, like indirect taxes has been cut on a lot of critical mineral imports to make it easy for us to manufacture solar cells, photovoltaic cells, etc. There is one statement from Minister of MNRE. He said that the solar rooftop project is definitely in focus, but apart from that, there are schemes like PM Kusum, National Green Hydrogen Mission, Green Energy Corridors, and Bioenergy. And he said that these will get further pushed through fund allocation. In the budget speech, the Honorable FM had said that the Surya Ghar scheme has seen 1.28 crore registration and 14 lakh application. So that means there is a good appetite and the good interest shown by people in opting for solar rooftop panels. Then if you come more on the budget part, there is a strong focus on water management, emphasizing water supply, sewage treatment, and solid waste management project for 100 large cities. All these you can link it up with sustainable development goals. The collaboration with state government and development banks to create bankable project is a significant step for urban water infrastructure. The innovative use of treated water for irrigation and tank filling in nearby areas is a promising approach to water recovery and storage. This is very important because yesterday also we had rains in Delhi. and in maybe 1 hour or 2 hours of rain, the entire roads are flooded. I mean, all these rainwater could be harvested. The drainage system should suitably address this, but these are issues at a systematic level, and only policy directions can be banked upon to address this systematic issue from a systematic viewpoint. The release of climate resilient crop varieties. So in the budget, Honorable FM has released some varieties of crop which are climate resilient. It highlights government's commitment to boost agricultural productivity, also improve water use efficiency in farming, aligning with sustainable water management goals. Farming uses a lot of water, and we have to put in practices to somewhere optimize that water use. So like rice as a crop is very water intensive. So there has been policy push that excess production of rice is not helping. It is just laying in the food cooperative go downs and rotting out. It's not even becoming an export option. So in those cases, there is a policy push that farmers are incentivized or at least nudged to go for pulses or oil seeds and like that, which are not so water intensive. And MSPs are going to be fixed for that as well. So there is a nudge towards that. Addressing water in agriculture is also key to driving water security. Efficient water use in farming can reduce pressure on fresh water resources and ensure availability for drinking purposes. We've seen water issue in Bangalore also very recently. We have issues in Delhi. Even I believe most of the cities are facing water scarcity issues. And some survey also says that by 2030, water will be the key concern for Indian cities. Budgetary allocation will support India's mission to secure long-term water sustainability and ensuring that every community has access to safe and reliable water resource. This is like the most basic amenity one can expect, right? Drinking water. And even that is going to become scarce. So there is a policy direction given to somehow address that. Budget focus on advancing rural development with a promising 2.66 lakh crore allocation. It stands as a welcome move with potential to transform India's excluded households. So for rural household development, 2.66 lakh crores has been allocated. 5 critical schemes have been brought in to promote skill development, to bolster employment, and this will help in creating livelihood generation. The measures championing women-led development and labor force participation, including over 3 lakh crore allocation for schemes for women and girls and women-specific skilling program, can pave the way for women empowerment. 2024 Union Budget highlights priority given to solar and renewable energy sectors. So a lot of emphasis on the renewable energy sector because we want to meet our targets and we want to do better on it. The PM Suryagar Muft Bijli Yojana, the rooftop solar scheme, aims to install 10 million rooftop solar panels, standing out as a significant advancement. Initiative could greatly benefit India's solar PV module manufacturers. So Indian domestic manufacturing will also get a leg up because of this. Removing solar glass and copper wire connector from the custom duty exemption list is a prudent measure. This decision is crucial to support burgeoning domestic industry and budget proposals. So basically, we are trying to make sure more components are manufactured here. So we can, because what we purchase from China is very expensive. So to boost the manufacturing of related ecosystem of solar cells or solar panels in India, necessary duty cuts have been brought in. Pumped storage for power is another vital area with the potential for substantial saving and more efficient power generation utilization. So basically what pumped storage is, you have two reservoirs, one at a higher level, one at a lower level, and water is then moved up and down in the reservoir. While it's stored also, the water movement is ensured, which generates electricity. So that's called pumped storage for power. This is again a new policy direction. So this has potential for substantial saving and power generation utilization. This new policy introduced may attract further investment and create new opportunity for manufacturers. Budget introduces significant measures that promise positive impact on the fashion industry. Now, this fast fashion term has also picked up a lot, where if I may retain correctly, the most of the fast fashion clothes have high levels of PVC components, which is synthetic. It's like plastic only. In fact, buttons and all these things, and they have more plastic content in the clothing. Now, these plastic contents take a long time to decay. They are not biodegradable, right? And they are going to harm the environment after you dispose them. So a lot of measures have been brought in the budget to address the fashion industry concerns also. PVC flex banners known for their non-biodegradable nature and environmental hazards, are set to face increased basic custom duty from 10% to 25% to deter imports. Budget expands the list of exempted goods used in manufacturing of leather and textile garments, footwears, and other leather articles. Now, by exempting goods import or maybe exempting import duty on goods used for manufacturing of leather articles, we are somehow nudging towards a conscionable, eco-friendly products, because leather is made from animal waste or made from things which can biodegrade in a landfill in 10 to 50 years. But compare it with plastics will take at least 500 plus years to break down in the same environment. So the budget tries to to promote eco-conscious fashion, to try to exempt things for a manufacture of leathers, so that people shift to this rather than shifting to plastic. Budget declaration marks an important turn in addressing housing requirement of 1 crore urban poor and middle class families with the investment of 10 lakh crores. This will improve the urban housing infrastructure. So on the rural infrastructure and the urban infrastructure, there's a good push. Then high states have been asked, stamp duty is a state subject. States have been asked to moderate the high stamp duty rates so that real estate business also picks up a bit. Budget emphasizes transparent rental housing markets and enhanced services for urban development in 100 large cities, reflecting a forward-thinking approach to urban development. So all these steps towards urban rural infrastructure development will lead into better real estate transactions. 2024 budget sets 9 priorities with a clear path towards India's net zero goal. It prioritizes sustainability and climate resilience, aims to impact the nation positively. It introduces natural farming for 1 crore farmers, aided by scientific backing and local governance, alongside establishment of 10,000 bio-input resource center and the release of 109 climate resilient crop varieties to support eco-friendly agriculture. This will go a long way in addressing our climate goals. There is an initiative to develop Bharat small reactors with private sector. It's a significant move. So small reactors are basically small nuclear plants which will develop, which will generate clean energy. Already 16 such plants are operational in India. So budget also talks about creating a taxonomy, as we already discussed, for climate finance. Proposed comprehensive review of agricultural research setup to focus on improving productivity and developing climate resilient crops will lend an impetus to Indian agriculture. So budget has suggested that we'll go for a comprehensive review of agricultural research setup. This initiative to bring together experts from government and private will do a much needed fillip to R&D sector. So a lot of agri-tech, agri-tools will be come in the offing. The government's commitment to get 1 crore farmers into organic farming and promote large-scale horticulture production next 2 years will significantly increase agricultural productivity and sustainability. So organic farming, natural farming, a lot of push on that. The establishment of proposed 10,000 need-based bio-input resource center will make natural farming more accessible to Indian farmers. Furthermore, the emphasis on strengthening the production, storage, and marketing of pulses, along with financing for shrimp farming, showcases a holistic approach to supporting diverse agricultural activities. So not just rice or wheat. Go for shrimp farming, go for pulses, go for oil seeds. A lot of nudges on the policy from millet, on the millet growing, etc. Allocation of 1.52 lakh crores for agriculture and allied sector is a clear indication of government's dedication to transforming this critical sector. India is a farm economy. We have been that way. Although service sector has been contributing more, but we are typically an agricultural economy. And this allocation of 1.52 lakh crore, all this emphasis on agricultural, agri-tech, startups for agriculture, all these loans for farmers, subsidies, all these things are pointing towards a transformation in agricultural sector. Technology has been transforming agriculture. Governments plan to implement digital crop survey for Kharif crop in 400 districts, as well as the release of 109 weather-resistant seeds will drive innovation and efficiency in farming practices. The two major announcements regarding climate relates to creation of a carbon market and transition from energy-based target to emission-based target. So rather than seeing energy efficiency, go for an emission-based target for the hard-to-abate industries. The policies on energy transition will create significant employment opportunity and growth opportunity. In fact, like we discussed, the net zero by 2070 is one of the most positive things to create infrastructure and to generate employment. The focus on the manufacturing sector, especially MSME, is again noteworthy. a lot of nudge and push for the MSME has been done. Initiatives like plug and play industrial parks, National Industrial Corridor Program will bolster the economy and lead to greater demand. Budget marks a significant advancement in waste management sector, particularly tackling e-waste and plastic waste. By emphasizing recycling of critical minerals, budget aims to reduce our reliance on imports. Key initiatives include technological upgrades, workforce development, and establishment of extended producer responsibility framework. So, extended producer responsibility is that my responsibility does not end on my production of a of any resource. I have to be responsible for it till its life cycle. That is called extended producer responsibility. Now, budget has tackled and given policy direction on measuring and how to store or dispose e-waste and plastic waste. So there is a clear-cut indication that we want to do waste management properly as well. Then budget focuses on growth and promotion of circular economy, highlighting a strong commitment to long-term environmental stewardship and resource efficiency. So recycling of critical minerals, etc., are a step towards circular economy. Announcement relating to critical mineral measure. So government has proposed to do away with customs duty on 25 critical minerals like lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc. And this will promote manufacturing in segments like battery storage. Not only battery storage, it will also help in the ecosystem in that EV segment, which relates to the battery. The abolition of angel tax. The abolition of angel tax will give a big boost to startups and young entrepreneurs who are the job creators of future. So there has always been a soft corner for startups, and necessarily so. A lot of incubation setups have been made, and a lot of R&Ds and support have been given to startups. A lot of tax incentive. This time they have also removed angel tax, and this is definitely going to help there be a flourishing of startup ecosystem, more entrepreneurs, coming into the game, and more research and development, more innovative ideas, ultimately more choices for the customers. And everybody learns from failures. So even if there are failed startup ideas, they can definitely become something better. So it will definitely create alternative solutions. In fact, a lot of our emission problems or climate change problems, startups are taking up that challenge and trying to provide solutions which can be effective. So this is a very good step. Strong emphasis on green energy and infrastructure development, supported by allocation of 19,100 crore to MNRE. We discussed on this. Budget support for R&D of newer technologies to speed up energy transition. Announcement of developing a roadmap for updating emissions for hard-to-abate industries, and emphasis on cross-industry energy efficiency are good measures for green economy. The transition map for hard-to-abate industry to move from the PAT scheme to Indian carbon market is a welcome step. Announcement of 11 lakh crore capex signifies government's commitment for on the modernizing of India's infrastructure to various significant projects, which is again good for industries like cement and other building materials. The budget gives a lot of money to agriculture at 1.52 lakh crore, which helps make progress in agri-tech and agri-tools. So this is definitely going to be one area where a lot of investment and opportunities will be there. Provision of 1.5 lakh crore to long-term interest-free loans to states for infrastructure development is a positive announcement. So not only there is 11 lakh crore capex from the central government, there is also a provision for 1.5 lakh crore long-term interest-free loan to states for infrastructure state-level projects. Now some pointers. So these were like broad policy initiatives or broad line of thinking from the government on the budget 2024. Now some more pointers which we should take into our perspective as well. The carbon trading market, which we spoke about, this was formulated last year. Final shape is yet to be done. This has to be implemented. This is very required, and this has to be implemented. Several public sector banks, NBFCs, had this query on climate finance. That what is climate finance? How should we bring products on climate finance? What should be the terms of? So to address those queries, the government has suggested taxonomy for climate finance. So that will be helpful. So we hope that this comes sooner. The Honorable Prime Minister also launched Maritime Amrit Kal Vision. And so when the interim budget came in 2024, even in fact a year before that, there was a lot of talk on blue economy, that how we should use our large ocean resources and large pathways to create a blue economy. How can we do sustainable fishing? And a lot of these aspects were discussed. And after that, a maritime Amrit Kal vision was also set up, which says that, we'll have an investment of 80 lakh crore rupees. It was formulated by Ministry of Ports to build on Maritime India Vision of 2030 and aims to develop world-class ports and promote inland water transport and coastal shipping and sustainable maritime sector. It encompasses aspiration in logistics, infra, shipping, and supporting India's blue economy. The vision, shaped through over 150 consultation, various stakeholders, 50 international benchmarks, outlines more than 300 actionable initiatives on waterways by 2047. So there's a lot of push on blue economy as well. Now, there are some sector-specific opportunities, challenges, which are given in the economic survey. We'll just go to the survey, see what those different sectors, very broadly, we'll see what the sectors are, what challenges the survey thinks are there, and what solutions the survey suggests them. But just before that, so I'll just like to show 2-3 more slides from here so that I don't have to keep on shifting the PPT and the survey. So some figures we should, be interested in. The budget 24-25 allocates funds worth 1.52 lakh crore for Indian agriculture, 2.6 lakh crore for rural development, capex outlay of 7.1 lakh crores, 1.5 lakh crore towards interest-free capex for states, 6.21 lakh crore for the defense sector, 2,52,000 crore to railways, and affordable housing 2.2 lakh crores. So from this we can understand where the push is on the budget, where the funds are going to be spent. Now, where are the opportunities which lies because of this transition to green economy, right? And these are very from a common man's perspective, what all areas are interesting and what all areas will be in the trend for giving investment opportunity or which will see a lot of innovation. So one is definitely renewable energy. We can see that there's a push on solar, green hydrogen, pump storage for power. This is a new policy initiative given this time. Small nuclear reactors, which we call Bharat small reactors, already 16 units are operation. And so there is a lot of push on renewable energy side. So definitely this ecosystem will grow. India's target is to install 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030, right? And we also had a target that 50% of our cumulative electricity generation should be from non-fossil fuel based energy sources. And we have already reached more than 40%, which is a good sign. So we will reach 50% very soon. But there will be, like I showed in the first couple of slides, 7,700 gigawatts of solar and wind energy will be required to reach our net zero goal by 2070. So definitely a lot of opportunities will be there in the renewable energy field. Our target also included 100 gigawatt of wind power by 2030, 30 gigawatt from offshore wind. Offshore wind is again a new area where there will be investment opportunities. And our target was also to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen annually by 2030. So these are 2030 goals. We'll be seeing now 2047 Viksit Bharat goals, and then we'll be seeing 2070 net zero. So we have to keep the larger picture in mind. If you see net zero, a lot of nudge and push will be there on renewable sources, renewable energy sources, and low carbon emission technologies like carbon capture projects. So these technologies, these areas will have more investment and opportunities. Net zero by 2070, India set this goal in COP26. It will require major sectors like power, industry, and transportation to switch to low carbon technologies. So probably in transportation, people will shift to renewable logistic based on renewable source of energy, because now even if you say EV, that EV is again powered maybe through a charging system which draws power from a grid, which is again powered by a thermal coal-based power plant. We don't know, right? So that kind of analysis is important to understand where is this power which is charging the EV is really coming from. If it's from renewable sources, then it's definitely clean. Otherwise, we have to work on that as well. So all these things will have good investment opportunities. Agriculture, we've seen so much on this budget. We've seen on the interim budget and budgets before that as well. So it's definitely one of the key areas where the government is working on, which is necessary also. To become self-reliant, we should be able to feed ourselves first, right? And we can do that only when we take care of our farmers, we take care of our crops, and we take care of livelihood for the people who can then buy those crops. So we have to create and sustain a market, and we have to definitely work a lot on food security. We have crops which we produce in surplus, which is then rotting in godowns. then we need crops which we are not able to grow here and which we are have to import, and which is adding to our import bills, right? So the budget this time, budget previously also, there is a lot of focus on creating climate resilient crops, or pushing on agri-tech, or maybe using drones for geo surveying of the farmlands, classification of farmlands properly, is dry land, wetland, etc. So we can see that there will be a lot of development on this. R&D is also going to go up in this area. Then skilling and upgradation. So much of focus on youth, women empowerment, right? Internships and jobs. Although employment has been a concern and it has to be addressed, we have a young working age population, and we have to use that to our positive. It should not be acting to our negative, right? Otherwise, our uh, positive side will create counterproductive measures if we are not able to generate employment. We read a survey which says that 78 lakh jobs annually has to be created, to address the employment issue. So that aspect has to be addressed by capex also, by the government also, by private sector as well. So this again has a good huge opportunity. The economic survey says 1 out of the 2 graduates are not skilled enough to get a job. So that means there is some gap between reality and theoretical knowledge, right? So to graduate is one thing, and then to be able to have the skill to get a job is something different. So there is definitely a gap which can be addressed by skilling and upgradation. So we are already seeing so many online platforms offering courses on data mining, data analysis, artificial intelligence, this, that. So many things are coming up. So skill development industry will be one thing, key area where a lot of opportunities will be there, which will also contribute to the GDP growth. Then coming on to sustainable and affordable housing. So we see the push that is there for creating houses for urban and rural households, and to make it affordable and sustainable at the same time. So there will be focus on looking at how climate is changing. We can see how many air conditions now are being used if you compare it with 10 years back. In fact, we are cooling our home, but in that process, we are warming up the earth more. And that is again something which has to be addressed through solutions like sustainable housing, using materials which can keep the natural cooling inside the house, or we can, which can, what do you say, we can retain the heat for a more longer period when in winters. So all these things, all these innovative solutions are definitely required. Then green logistics, as I said, logistics can be optimized by optimizing routes, by making sure that easier and a route which is more viable is used for transportation. Logistics can be made sustainable by opting for transportation methods which use renewable sources of energy upon, rather than some other fossil fuel based source of energy. These things probably, and using more of public transport, investing on public transport infrastructure to make it so good that people don't have to take out their private vehicles. Maybe these things. I've seen some countries where the public transport is so cheap, and the owning a private vehicle or having insurance for a private vehicle is so expensive that people are motivated to use the public transport. But in fact, the public transport is then so good also. You are able to use them, and it's connected all throughout the city. So we have to reach a situation where that is possible. So there's a natural inclination for the public also to go to public transport. When they brought CNG in Delhi, it was a success because it was quite cheap. It was less than 50% of what petrol costed, and government was giving subsidy if you put a CNG cylinder in your car, and people opted for that. Naturally, they opt. So you have to show some incentivization, whether it's by taxation, subsidy, or some policy, which will, or policy like if your private vehicle ownership or insurance so expensive that you prefer public transport, which is more easier also, there will be a natural inclination to shift. So these things probably will be creating an atmosphere for investment, for innovation. These are 6 large spaces which I could see from the survey, from past experience, which might come up. Now coming on to the next slide, how businesses can benefit by greening. So few broad parameters. If it's a green economy, that means all businesses also have to offer a greener way. All individuals also have to offer a greener way. Now, how this greening helps businesses? One is sustainability. These green initiatives can improve supply chain resilience. They can increase innovation and positively impact on triple bottom line. profit, people, and planet. That's a TPL approach we take, and it definitely then gives you a reputation also when you are more on sustainable back. Competitive advantage: green products can be ranked favorably among customers and sold at a higher price rather than industrial norm. So we have seen that organic farming, anything with a stamp that it's organic, is sold much quicker than anything which is not, right? So organic farming, natural farming, all these things do give a positive side to the marketing also. Reduced waste: when you opt for greener waste, you are reducing waste, you are improving efficiency, waste management is better, right? Renewable energy: you are using more renewable energy, thereby you are reducing ecological cost, you are increasing economic growth, you are again aligning with the nation's climate goals. Energy efficiency can reduce energy consumption. When I opt for sustainable ways, I will definitely track my energy consumption, my emissions, my waste, and I'll try to optimize them, bring them down, right? So this will reduce energy consumption. It will improve energy security and promote economic growth. Brand image gets better when I'm more sustainable as a business, and my community relationship with those around me also gets better. Now, what are the challenges which SMEs face in a green economy? Because SMEs form the backbone of our economy, because they are so large in number, they play such a crucial role in generation of employment and contribution to GDP growth. So it's important to understand what challenges they face in the transition towards green economy. One is, we have to some way show their inclination towards ESG. We have to show that why it's necessary for them also to form part of ESG. Right now, we have BRSR stipulated by SEBI in India, applies to top 1,000 listed entities, and even voluntary reporting under BRSR light can be done. But that voluntary reporting, we have to create awareness so that SMEs, or maybe a separate, easier reporting framework for SMEs can be brought in. Assistance can be done to them to help in reporting. So it's not seen as a cost compliance burden for them. Environmental damage: SMEs need to maximize the role of intellectual capital as the primary innovation foundation, as employees have the knowledge and skills to use green technology. So SMEs will have to work on intellectual capital. So they have to train their resources, their employees on how to use green technology. For that, again, there will be a cost concern. There will be a requirement for support. Access to finance: SMEs have limited access to finance, and most of the access is to unorganized, disorganized finance, which creates a lot of interest burdens, leads to insolvencies also. So better access to finance is something SMEs should be given for tackling, or aligning with the ESG goals of the nation. Regulatory compliances have to be made easy for SMEs. You have to bring in some kind of flexible reporting so that they are incentivized to come and report, and we can't put them in a complex web of compliance and regulation, because then people won't opt for it. Technology adoption: SMEs may face challenges adopting new technologies and manufacturing techniques because they don't have that required skill set or technology knowledge. So again, support will be required from that end. Now I'll just come back to the economic survey to show performance of key sector challenges and opportunities. I'll just shift the slides. Basically, the economic survey gives a lot of different sectors, including the service sector, and says, what are the important sectors, what challenges they are facing. And we can't go much deeper into them because of lack of time, definitely. But what we'll try to see is what the survey says about important sector. So on cement, the survey says that cement contributes approximately 11% of input cost to construction sector. Cement industry has progressed significantly in capacity and process technology since 1991. Indian industry, cement industry comprises 159 integrated large cement plants, 120 grinding units, and 62 mini plants. Most of the cement plants are located in proximity of raw material source. 85% of cement industry is in Rajasthan, Andhra, Telangana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, etc. Industry has adequate capacity to meet domestic cement demand. So we are self-reliant, that we are able to supply what we require to consume. Quantity of cement imported is about 0.2% of total domestic cement production. Export has increased. Industry has maintained a capacity utilization rate 60 to 65%. Gross margins they are affected a bit. Domestic cement consumption is around 260 kilo per capita against a global average of 540 kilo per capita. So there is potential for growth. Cement industry is mainly driven by infra development and urbanization. So 11 lakh crores capex outlay means more usage of cement. So definitely this industry again will be in the trend for other opportunities. Cement sector generates about 7% of anthropogenic emissions. So emissions, as I said, globally also 7% is what cement sector contributes to GHG emissions. So that's like a hard to abate sector. So we have to move to a carbon market scheme for them. Coming on to steel, the survey says steel contribute approximately 47% of all inputs in building and construction sector. We are a net exporter of finished steel. As world moves towards low carbon economy, green steel is poised to play a pivotal role in reshaping future of steel industry. India's steel sector counts for 12% of India's greenhouse gas emission with emission intensity of so much. So more focus towards green steel is required. To achieve goal of self-reliant India, boost steel sector, government established a steel plant in Bastar in 23, marking significant milestone in India's steel production. Greenfield project is expected to produce high quality steel, contributing to socio-economic development of the region and positioning India as a key player in the global steel market. So some initiatives which are being taken by the government on these sectors, like on coal, reducing external dependence. Coal accounts for more than 55% of India's primary commercial energy. Coal-fired power generation accounts for about 70% of total power generation. So this is what we are trying to reduce. We are trying to go to a renewable source of energy. Coal production accelerated the last 5 years, leading to reduced import dependence. The ratio of domestic production of coal to consumption improved gradually over the last decades. Now, initiative, challenges, and opportunities in the coal sector. Definitely, we can't see all the sectors, so just taking a couple of them. On the coal, it's written that technological difficulties due to limited availability of modern mining equipment from indigenous manufacturers. I have to go out to purchase these modern equipments. I don't have it indigenously. That's one difficulty. Procedural complexities in acquiring forestry and environmental clearances, land acquisition, possession need to be taken care for timely development of mining projects. So these clearances which are required for mining, that's an issue. Need for sustainable solutions amid global environmental action. I'm talking about coal, and it's a sector which is inherently tackling pollution issues. So we need sustainable solutions amid global environmental action and climate action. To mitigate challenges, industries focusing on reducing emissions, improving energy efficiency, and adopting cleaner coal technologies. So you have to mine coal, but maybe the mining process can be greener. So something called green coal is also there, which is basically the process of mining is more environment friendly. In spite of an adequate domestic supply of thermal coal, only the substitutable part of the import can be replaced. Increasing demand for coking coal will push coking coal imports up, right? Coal can be used as a green energy source such as coal mine methane, coal bed methane, coal to liquid, and coal to methanol. The CMM and CBM need to be tapped progressively. Then we talk about pharma sector. India is largely dependent on imports for many antibiotic APIs. When COVID happened, we heard a lot about APIs, that maximum APIs are manufactured in China. All the countries in the world are dependent on China for APIs. So India is largely dependent on imports for APIs. India's import dependency is large due to lack of cost-effective options in domestic API manufacturing compared to imports. So I'm not able to manufacture it because it's very costly to manufacture. Rather, I'll just import it. Domestic infra and R&D have improved considerably in recent years, but challenges remain. Export growth occurred due to consistent innovation in the last 5 to 6 decades. The export growth can be sustained by increasing capabilities in biopharmaceutical manufacturing. Pharma industry size is expected to reach $130 billion. Next leg of growth in pharma necessitates skill advancement, use of innovation technology, and establishment of strong supply chain. That's on pharma. Then we have textile industry. 7 PM Mitra parks with a budget of 4,000 crores will be established. Park will feature 1,000-acre plug-and-play facilities. We spoke about the plug-and-play facilities. MOUs signed with 7 states, JVs, SPVs. PLI scheme has been approved for 10,000 crores for man-made fiber apparel and fabrics and technical textiles, expected to attract 19,000 crore investment and 2.5 lakh jobs. So these plug-and-play parks are expected to attract investment and create jobs. launched with an outlay of 1,500 crores, National Technical Textile Mission, focuses on increasing use of technical textile in various sectors, right? National Handloom Development Program approved with outlay of 1,000 crores approximately. Initiatives undertaken to establish 96 small handloom clusters. So these were done in textiles. Coming to electronic manufacturing, EMC scheme, electronic manufacturing scheme, cluster scheme launched in 2012, supports EMC projects and common facility centers. Second version of the scheme, notified in April 2020, extends financial assistance to the projects. Progress of scheme, 184 crores has been released under the scheme and is expected to attract 40,000 crore investment and generate 5 lakh employment. Coming on to automotive, we all know about the FAME 1, FAME 2 for electric vehicles. So that scheme they spoken about. So then PLI scheme, and you have your MSMEs. On MSMEs, as per latest information, the share of MSME in all India manufacturing output is 35%. And then it says that the number of unincorporated enterprises in India increased 6%. GVA per worker increased from 1,38 crores to 1,41 crores, and gross value of output increased to 4,63,000 crores. MSME registration portal has been instrumental in formalizing MSMEs, so credit can also be formalized using this portal. 4.69 crores MSMEs are registered on Udyam registration portal, including informal micro enterprises. Then they talk about corporate guarantee scheme to enable additional 2 lakh crores in credit with reduced cost. So for MSMEs, we have the credit guarantee scheme, which has been spoken about. Challenges and opportunities. MSMEs face challenges, including issues like formalization, for which we have the MSME portal now, limited access to finance, markets, technology, digitalization, infrastructure bottlenecks, and skilling. To address these challenges, government has implemented initiatives, platforms aimed at supporting formalization, ease of registration, and grievance redressal. Like Samadhan portal is there, MSME Samadhan, Chamban portal, Champions portal, which aid in delayed payment issues. Majority of the issues in MSME is not getting payments within the stipulated time. So these platforms help in there, and they also help in procurement monitoring and speeding resolution of grievances. Nearly 70% of total e-commerce sale were from MSME in 2021. So that's one more good positive. It's about central public sector enterprises. So these were on the important sectors. We can probably see service sector also just for 2 minutes. So we'll straight away come to challenges and opportunities. Again, economic survey says that there's a summary of challenges and growth that cut across different segments of services. First is rapid digitization in the services sector necessitates a skilled workforce to keep pace with technological advancement. We can see around us how fast technology is moving and evolving. So we need workforce also to catch up to that, to be able to adjust with that technology change. However, there is a gap in the availability of workers with relevant digital and high-tech skills. The government has been focusing on skill development through programs like Skill India, National Education Policy to equip workforce with necessary skills. In recognition of importance of logistic and transport services for economic activity, several initiatives have been undertaken to ease infrastructure bottlenecks, logistic costs, and regulatory compliances. Also, we are trying to leverage India's extensive coastline and river network for enhanced services such as port operation, inland waterways, etc. The Netherlands boasts Europe's densest network of inland waterways covering 6,000 kilometers of river and canal. These waterways serve various purposes, including drainage, navigation. Key commercial routes totaling 2,200 kilometers handle about 40% of international freight movements. So when across the globe, people are able to use their inland waterways, we have a large extent of waterways which can be used. Kerala's use of its backwater for tourism, particularly in Kochi, which is expected to benefit 33,000 islanders. Accessing finance can pose difficulties for service sector we are talking, particularly for SMEs. Several initiatives like Mudra Yojana, Startup India, Stand Up India have been implemented to ease credit availability. There is also there is also the credit guarantee scheme from the government for MSMEs. Regulatory landscape in services sector, which used to be complex, is undergoing positive transformation like GST simplification, Startup India, specific policies for startup, and RERA. Government also says that we will be reviewing Income Tax Act and other indirect taxes regime to make it more simpler and harmonize the provisions. Data privacy and cybersecurity have become critical concerns. A lot of hacking, cyber attacks we are seeing. Government is spearheading data protection law and cybersecurity policies to safeguard consumer data. So these basically then take care of the goods and service sector. Just come back to the slides one more. In fact, I'll just try to show what's given in chapter 6, which talks about climate change. Only thing which is not there in the economic survey is probably hyperlinking of the index, make it easier for accessing the relevant page. But apart from that, they've covered a lot of statistics on ground. Most of the parameters we actually discussed in our slides itself. I was just checking if I can show the bad text of the survey also. Yeah, so this is chapter 5, chapter 6. So chapter 6 is on climate change and energy transition, dealing with trade-offs. So just very broad pointers because we are again going to be short on time. So the chapter starts saying that despite being one of the fastest growing economies, India's annual per capita carbon emission is only 1/3 of the global average. So we all know we are the fastest growing economy. IMF also says that, but our per capita emission is not that much. It's only 1/3 of the global average, but still we are being blamed that as a developing nation, we are, maybe the worst polluter. And we have discussed about the Viksit Bharat vision by 2047. Survey says that, things are happening around the world and we have to take note of them also. The United Kingdom postponed its decision to ban sale of vehicles that run on petrol and diesel for 5 years from 2030 to 35. So they wanted to ban, now they postponed that decision. Germany had to dilute its rules for banning boilers running on fossil fuel before they could be passed. They wanted to ban boilers running on fossil fuel, but they had to dilute the rules before it could be passed. A lot of political changes, a lot of dynamics, a lot of demographic changes, which are then requiring such modifications, which are not allowing for very strict implementation of sustainable related activities. German businesses cite rising energy costs as the single biggest reason for relocating out of the country. So this again is a challenge. It has to be worked on. Nuclear energy is the cleanest and safest option, but some nations are reluctant to consider it, given that their public overestimates probabilities of rare events as humans are want to. So basically, because of the nuclear war which has happened before, and the nuclear disasters which have happened before, like Chernobyl and Fukushima, so we are not very comfortable to go for large nuclear reactor plants for generating electricity. Ed Conway wrote that the world might need more copper in the next few decades than it has ever used since the metal was known to humans. Not just copper, but other metals will also be in short supply. Price of energy transition will be too much, and for the most nations, it will get only worse. So for electric vehicle EV ecosystem, we need critical minerals, including copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, so many. And these are going to be in short supply, which again will make energy transition costly. And extracting minerals also require tremendous amount of energy. Other factor is time. We nowhere in the world has energy transition of this scale happened within the short time envisaged. So till now, it has been a gradual onset of impacts. But now we are at a position where we are expected to do too much at a too small a time period allowed. The more effective solution is to lower overall energy use. So like we said that the problem is overconsumption. And rather than addressing the problem of overconsumption, the very issue of overconsumption, we are just substituting it with some other overconsumption which is possible. We are not actually addressing the issue. We are only addressing the problem for a temporary time. So here also, Vaclav Smile in 2014, he suggested that more effective solution is to lower overall energy use, but we don't want to lower the energy use. We just want to find alternative ways to meet our energy requirement. We had the Paris Agreement, and then we had Sustainable Development Goals. So after Paris Agreement, SDGs came. So not only the development goals have been downgraded in the process of elevation of containing global emissions, but developing nations are being threatened with a carbon tax at the border in full negation of the spirit of common but differentiated responsibilities. So we developing nations are being threatened with a carbon tax. Even as developed nations prepare to impose a carbon tax at the border on imports coming into their countries laden with carbon, they are ramping up energy demands like never before, thanks to obsession like AI, artificial intelligence, and to take over natural intelligence. So, although at one place they say we have to reduce emission and we will impose carbon tax on imports from developing nations, they are the ones pushing more on artificial intelligence and likewise technologies, which is resulting in more emissions. So, in fact, the survey refers to the Google's report, refers to the Microsoft report, where Google reported, in fact, that 50% emission has increased due to their work on AI platforms and databases. And Microsoft also said the 30% increase in emissions is there solely because of AI. Because for AI, you use a lot of data centers, and those data centers consume a lot of energy, water, and create a lot of emissions. Right. So basically, the survey, I got you the very crux in the slides, and the survey talks about more in depth, in more details, like what is the present status of India's climate action. We adopted a mission mode approach. We had a national action plan on climate change, NAPCC. We submit our report to global bodies also. We made significant progress on climate action. The addition to installed solar power capacity was 15 gigawatts in 23-24, reaching a cumulative 82.64 on April 2024. The PAT scheme in various cycles has resulted in significant amount of energy saving and reduction in greenhouse gases. Country achieved 40% of cumulative electrical power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy in 2021 and reduced the emission intensity from 2005 levels by 33% in 2019, 9 and 11 years respectively before the target year of 2030. The National Defined Contribution was further updated in August 2022. The target to reduce emission intensity of India's GDP was enhanced to 45% from earlier 33 to 35% by 2030. And the target on cumulative electric power installed from non-fossil fuel-based energy increased to 50% from earlier 40%. As of 31st May 2024, share of non-fossil fuel sources in installed electricity generation capacity has reached 45.4%. So we are well on our way to reach the 500 gigawatt or to reach the 50% target well before time. So all these are then just more facts on what we have done, what are the macro factors. We know that our energy needs are expected to grow 2 to 2.5 times by 2047, leave from 2070. By 2047 itself, it will more than double. So we have to put more efforts for our energy security. India's primary energy mix was fossil fuel dominant, 84% from coal, oil, natural gas, or the composition has significantly changed due to phasing in of renewables, with the share of non-fossil being 45.4% as of May, from 32% in April. Recent initiatives for enhancing production of renewable are noteworthy, like PM Surya Ghar Yojana. Then you have a solar capacity of 30 gigawatts, reduce 720 million tons of CO2, creating 17 lakh direct jobs across solar value chain. So we are talking about solar value chain created by PM Surya Ghar Yojana. Second, in India's 7,600 kilometer long coastline, government has notified national offshore wind energy policy and offshore wind energy lease rules. Several offshore zones have been identified for harnessing this potential. So I spoke about this, that when you can place turbines on water bodies like sea, you are able to capture more wind and thereby make more electricity. And viability. So this scheme does a viability gap funding for initial capacity of 1 gigawatt. Third, underscoring importance of green hydrogen in reducing carbon emission in hard to abate sectors. India Green Hydrogen Mission targets 5 million metric ton of green hydrogen by 2030. The scheme offers financial incentives to boost electrolyzer manufacturing and production. So most of the topics, you will recall that in the slides, we did discuss that these are some emerging areas. Right. So I'll just go back to the slides because we are just hearing our time. There are some questions on the chat box. I'll try to take them as well once I conclude the.
क्वेश्चन है, डाल दो क्वेश्चन.
Yeah, to conclude. So basically, we are talking about energy transition as a core theme of the budget and of the economic survey. But transition does not come without challenges. So even if you want to go towards solar panel or wind turbine, you require these rare earth metals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. And these are extracted from countries with poor labor and environmental standards. In fact, there are countries which are rich in resources which are exploited by other nations and which don't even get their due share in the profit, right? So these materials are extracted from countries with poor labor standards. Labor exploitation happens. The extraction process is itself energy intensive and environmentally destructive. It leads to a paradox where pursuit of clean energy, green energy contributes to environmental degradation. It's very similar to the paradox where like developed nations say, I want to tax tax on carbon in imports while I'll pursue artificial intelligence and do more emission, right? Second is renewable energy sources are intermittent. They are cyclical, depends on seasonal conditions. So you should have storage capacities also. And to have those storage capacity, again, you have to create those capacities which will have an environmental impact because batteries for storing this energy will again require additional mining and resource extraction. I told about Google and Microsoft where they have reported their emissions to may have increased from 30% to 50% in last 5 years thanks to their development of artificial intelligence data center. Then 70% of India's electricity is coming from coal, right? So this is a challenge and it can't be solved overnight. So there has to be a gradual shift and a natural shift to renewable source of energy. The financial burden of this transition is a major hurdle. Developing countries like India require approximately $6 trillion by 2030 to meet climate targets, but only $100 billion were placed by developed nation till 2020 with the actual provision of only 83 billion. In fact, before this, they did not even want to fund the climate targets. They are like, we are already developed. Why should we fund for developing nations achieving? But a lot of licensing and diplomatic actions happened because of which finally they agreed. But there is a large deficit in the financing. Additional efforts are needed to accelerate full development of manufacturing capabilities of solar transition. So we want to build a solar ecosystem, but apart from what is done, we need more also for the entire manufacturing process. And areas like labor regulations, technology imports, land infra, all these things are also required to foster that ecosystem. It is imperative to focus on the end users for critical minerals, which are not battery factories, but processing companies which manufacture anode, cathode, and electrolyte. These companies need to be incentivized so that they come and set up their processes. So not just policy direction, we also will need implementing steps and maybe a taxation incentives to incentivize people to set up those systems here. We need people, farmers to be incentivized to go towards the natural farming which has been proposed. So all these ideas have to have takers also. So efforts are required on that front as well. That's all from my end. I'll just take up the questions which are there in the chat box. If there are any other questions also, kindly you can just text it on the chat box. I'll see whatever I can take up. First question is, what are some promising investment opportunities in the green economy that business should consider? We discussed on this. So renewable space, good opportunity. Low carbon emission technologies, technologies which help in like carbon sequestration, carbon capture plants are there. Good technologies. You can probably go there. Startups are doing a lot of work on how to reduce emission, how to track emission. Agriculture, agri-tech is a very good area where you can find investment opportunity. Affordable, sustainable housing is again one good potential area because you see the policy push, you see the funding which is being given. So again, that's one good area. What are the primary challenges and risks that businesses might face while transitioning to greener practices, and how can they mitigate this risk? The first risk which comes is from the top vision, whether the vision is there to even transition to a greener economy. This chalta hai attitude is there prevalent all around us, and we are not wanting to change till the time we are forced to change, till the time we have to change for surviving. So that attitude or that lack of vision is the major obstacle in transition. But thankfully, because of SEBI's action, because of institutes, a lot of proactive actions, there is a push on voluntary reporting as well. There is a push on transparent reporting, BRSR reporting as well. The boards are being sensitized. They are made aware that what are the long-term benefits. It's not for a regulatory compliance which you are doing this transition or even doing the reporting. What are the long-term benefits of doing the reporting? Going forward, you might have taxation incentives, fiscal incentives based on your ESG score. So first obstacle may be the vision. Second obstacle will be maybe the lack of indigenous technology and equipments, which we don't have. We have to depend on other countries for them. Third, maybe on the financing front, you should have green subsidized loans to pursue green investments. So I think these are three major challenges. And to mitigate these risks also, if taxonomy comes, more NBFC and banks are encouraged to do green financing, that can be one way of sorting out the risk. Sensitizing the boards and creating more awareness on ESG, creating policies and procedures for companies to follow, that can be one way to inculcate that thing into their organization. Are there any specific sectors that are expected to lead or lag in adopting green practices? The sectors which are hard to abate, which are inherently pollutant, like cement, thermal power, maybe the ones will be lagging because of their inherent nature and inherent risk involved. But it's good to see a lot of such sectors are also, like in cement also you have green cement now. In coal also you have green coal. You go to a petrol pump, you can see green petrol also. So at least even if the very product cannot be changed, maybe the mining process, the extraction process, the manufacturing process can become green, and those efforts are being taken. I won't say any specific sector is leading or lagging, but it's very subjective. Service sectors have different set of parameters. They don't have those manufacturing related complexities. They might be having emissions in other forms like data centers, etc. They might need to do more to address those, whereas manufacturing sector have to put in a waste management system, effluent treatment system. So their efforts are different. So I will not really blame or appreciate any sector here. Survey discusses benefits of a greener economy. What are the most compelling economic benefits for business that adopt sustainable practices? I'll only say one word: survivability. If you don't do this, going forward, the entire business survivability will be in question, because everybody knows that this has to be done and there is no other way out. How does transition to a greener economy affect a country's global competitiveness? Are there specific strategic strategies businesses can adopt to remain competitive internationally? So to answer the first part of the question, if you want to compete with the global level, you have to again set parameters equivalent to the global level. If globally everybody following ESG parameters, strong reporting, assurances, sustainability practices, and you don't follow, then obviously you're not going to get to compete with them. Then you will only be a domestic player. So that advantage or that forum to compete itself will not be there. Secondly, we have just discussed that there will be a carbon tax by like European countries on imports from developing nations. So if you don't follow sustainable practices, you are going to be exporting carbon products. They'll be taxing it and it will not be viable. So I think that itself is a one parameter which should push our domestic companies to go sustainable. Specific strategies business can adopt to remain competitive internationally: maybe follow best benchmarks in the industry, to follow the best regulatory requirement in the industry, be transparent in the reporting, and as far as possible go for independent assessment also, and avoid greenwashing. I think those are the questions in the chat box, and I'd like to conclude it at that. Thank you so much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful presentation on the topic. Your expertise and practical knowledge have provided us with a clearer understanding of the vital intersections between sustainability and economic growth. We deeply appreciate your dedication to fostering professional growth and your significant contribution to this crucial field. Your eloquence and clarity have made the complex ideas both accessible and engaging, greatly enhancing our comprehension and appreciation of the green economy's importance. Now, I would like to ask Amit sir to give vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. First and foremost, a very big thanks to our speaker, C.A. Badrinarayanji, for giving his profound knowledge and expertise on the economic survey and the implications for the sustainability in the societies, in the business and others area. Your insights, really, sir, your insight have really enriched our discussion and inspire us to integrate sustainability practice more deeply for our business and for the society. I want to extend to my heartful thanks to everyone who contributes to the success of our webinar. And I also want to express my gratitude to all of you who participate so actively. Your questions, thoughts, and engagement made our conversation dynamic, meaningful, and full of valuable insight. Your involvement is what made this webinar a true success. And a special shout out to the organizing team and the support staff for their meticulous planning and hard work behind the scenes. Your dedications and efficiency ensured that this webinar ran smoothly and was highly informative. And I also like personally thanks to our chairperson who is not present today, C.A. Sripriya ji, and our vice chairman, Sri Anuj Goyal ji, for their visionary leadership in putting together this insightful webinar. Let's carry forward the valuable lessons we learned today and we strive towards a greener and more sustainable future. Together, we can make a significant impact on this. Thank you all you once again and have a great day, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amit sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, to revisit today's discussion or catch up on previous session, we encourage you to visit ICI TV channel of SRSB. There, you will find a wealth of knowledge and insights from our past sessions. Stay informed and continue your journey towards sustainability excellence by exploring our content on ICI TV. Stay connected and take care. Thank you. Thank you, sir, and thank you all participants for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.